South Africa was the poster child of conservation approach. It was the first country in the world that protected white shark in 1991. It was seen as a beacon of hope. And now it could be the first country that could lose its white shark.
In 2003 het Suid-Afrika se hokduikbedryf met withaaie 3.1 miljoen Amerikaanse dollar vir die land ingepalm. Dit is natuurlik voor ons withaaie-syfers so drasties gedaal het. Behalwe vir die finansiële invloed, speel hierdie roofdiere ook 'n kritieke rol aan die toppunt van ons mariene ekostelsel.
Die probleem is dis nie net die haai vang nie, né? Dis die kos wat die mense eet, wat die haie ook wil eet. En daar's nie meer baie vis nie, en daar's nie meer baie van hierdie oor en daai oor nie.
Daar's baie dinge wat ons doen, soos die oorvisvang, en dis nog nie eers gekwantifiseer nie.
This fishery kills in white sharks unintentionally. Targets actually prey species of white sharks. Other sharks called soup fin sharks and smooth-down sharks. These species have been classified by the South African government as endangered and critically endangered. Indirectly, those species of sharks, those smaller sharks, are the primary prey species for the white shark. This fishery catch white shark unintentionally, but it catches in large number. There was a whistleblower that last year told us that it was one on this boat for 9 weeks and they killed the 3 white sharks. 3 in 9 weeks, one boat. So we extrapolated that the whole fishery since the early 2000s has killed an average of between 40 and 60 white sharks every single year.
So die vermindering van die withaai het natuurlik dit het 'n groot impak op die ekosisteem in die sin dat ons nou meer van die ander sien.
Die bronze whale shark of die bronsvalvishaai of die koperhaai is die mees algemene haai huidiglik in die area. My supervisor's experience, so oor tussen 2009 en 2011 toe sy in die area gewerk het hulle net witdoodshaie of withaie gesien. Niks ander kleiner haai sou wag om nader aan die hok te kom nie. So like apex predators, mesopredators. Without the apex predators, the mesopredators are now in the area and they actually showing up around our cages. In die baai is dat omtrent 3 tot 4 withaie al sinds die 3de Mei, maar hulle is tussen 2 en 3 meters, so dit sou wees juveniles en sub-adults. En dis ook een van die redes hoekom die bronswalvishaie nie pad gee nie, omdat hulle eintlik groter is. Meestal van hulle is groter as die witdoodshaie wat nou in die area kom.
Maar is dit nie 'n goeie teken dat hulle jonk is nie?
Dit is 'n goeie teken omdat dit jou lei tot die vraag waarvanaf kom hulle? Broei hulle iewers miskien, maar die getal wat inkom is net te min.
Is dit ook hoekom daar so baie robbe is of is dit die verkeerde afleiding?
Volwasse witdoodshaie is die enigste haai en miskien die sub-adult white sharks wat die robbe jag. So nou dat daar soveel robbe op die eiland is, kompeteer hulle eintlik met mekaar vir prooi soos vis en seekatte. Die robbe gaan nou vir die pikkewyne en die pikkewyne is al klaar critically endangered to extinction, especially as South African penguins.
Ek dink nie die hele ekostelsel sal noodwendig in duie stort nie, want dit is die wonder van die evolusionêre proses, dit hou dinge aan die lewe. Maar dit gaan baie anders lyk en dit gaan baie skade doen.
In 2023, few scientists, mostly government scientists, published a paper that the white shark population in South Africa has been quite stable in the last 20 years since protection. And that to me I was very worried because when you tell the public and the government everything is fine, is stable, you don't need to do much about it. So I invited a few people with a lot of background in shark genetics, like Sarah. We put together a team and we asked the question, can we agree that the white shark population is stable based on this paper? And the answer was no. And we actually published this year in 2024 a paper rebutting that paper. The main issue with that paper, we found out that they basically said there has been 80% decline on white shark presence in the Western Cape. There is 80% increase in white shark in the Eastern Cape. Therefore, 80% is equal to 8%, so it's stable. But 80% from 500 is different from 80% increase from 10. They were comparing apples with oranges. Even if the population was stable, That would show that there is a problem because white shark had been protected since 1991. So 30 years down the line, we haven't seen a recovery that is already a worry. What I think is happening is a collapse started at the edge of the distribution, and now we're down to only few pockets where white sharks remains.
So our paper was actually really simple. What it did is it looked at, from 1991, over the last few decades that white sharks have been protected in South Africa, what have their trends shown in their regional habitat, right? We're not talking about just South Africa, we're talking their entire range, right? And the best available data we had was only just up until Algoa Bay, which is nowhere, isn't it? It's only just the very corner of the Eastern Cape, when in actual fact we know they go right up into Madagascar and Mozambique. There's also data sets coming in at the shark nets, the KwaZulu-Natal Sharks Board in Durban. Ran all the best available data sets through a model, which came from Hans Bay, Mossel Bay and False Bay, but also Algoa Bay, because there's a seal colony there and there's been some amount of research done. It didn't show a decline, didn't show an increase, it just didn't show a trend. And that happens quite often in science when you've got such sparse data, when you've got such variable data, when you've got all the components that play into white sharks and how they move and what they do. However, we don't think that South Africa should amend anything regarding their protective status for white sharks. They absolutely urgently need to keep this in place, because why haven't we seen a nice stable increase given that they've been protected since 1991? If there's been a percentage of them, even a small cohort, that have logically moved out the area that they were being literally hammered by shark specialist killer whales, then we need to know about this. We need this information because bather safety. We had 2022 2 fatal shark incidents in Plettenberg Bay right after Mossel Bay had been hit by the same killer whales and a displacement event occurred. And then, lo and behold, just last month, we collected the most incredible data set through drones, helicopters, boat surveys in the Eastern Cape. And some days there were up to 46 white sharks along the backline of a coast. I'd just done an interview with the journalist about it, excited, is it to do with the sardine run? Is it prey driven? And as I gave the interview, the question I was presented was, have the orcas been up to that part of the coast yet and preyed on any of the sharks? And I said, not that we know of so far, but with that pair of killer whales, or the killer whales that we're getting here that are hunting sharks in South Africa in general, never say never. And literally the next day, I get a phone call and a photograph, 4.6 meter male white shark, lay out on the beach, torn open, liver gone, killer whales in the area just 2 days before.
Is there any good news?
I think the good news is that we are seeing pockets, certainly a little bit in the Eastern Cape as well, certainly areas that have not been historically monitored as strongly as areas in the Western Cape or in KZN.
We'll be looking out for your research paper. Is it a reply to the rebuttal article?
Indeed, yeah. So I think that's the beauty of science. It opens up to the scientific community. We put our work out there. These individual researchers or groups of researchers can then assess that study themselves and bring into that some greater information and detail or competing ideas. And having these scientific debates is important because we can learn as a group and potentially expand the work going forwards.
Ons almal onthou die rolprent Jaws. Die Amerikaanse thriller van 1975 het my kinderlike verbeelding selfs in talle swembaddens op hol gehad. Maar, hoe lyk ons persepsies oor haie vandag? Hoekom bewonder ons die groot vyf in die wildtuin, terwyl sommige nog die withaaie as die monster van die diep blou see sien?
Mense dink is monsters. Waar in werklikheid dit is maar net nog 'n vis in die see, jy weet. Ek het begin duik en ons het hier in die water geval en saam met kykhaie geswem. En ek dink dit is waar my liefde vir die haie begin het, was daai eerste interaksie met 'n groot see-se predator wat nie daar was om my op te eet.
Mense kom cage dive en hulle eintlik sien hoe die haai is in sy natuurlike omgewing. Help dit om persepsies te verander. And instead of fearing the shark, you get respect for the shark and the role it has in the environment.
Ons het ook 'n ander studie gedoen wat ons net kyk hoe verander met die feit dat jy 'n wit doodshaai sien, die persepsie van 'n persoon wat die haai sien. En die hele Jaws idee van as jy 'n haai sien, gaan hy jou opvreet, tot dit is 'n dier aan daai kant wat eintlik 'n baie lae risiko het vir mense. Net daai kopskuif wat mense maak, is ongelooflik om te sien. Die kans dat jy aan 'n haaiaanval doodgaan, gaan na die 2 oseane aquarium in Kaapstad en kom ons kyk, waar hulle vir mens duidelik wys meer mense gaan dood om van 'n stoele af te val en ons sit elke dag op ons stoele.
So what is the happy midway? It's something that Shark Spotters got right.
As a conservation-based sort of organization looking at strategies to coexist with white sharks and humans and trying to find that balance, is using spotters in elevated positions to act as an early warning system.
Ons weekendpare, daar's 'n man wat bo sit in die beeg en daar's 'n man wat onder sit. Ons is in radiokontak met mekaar. As dit regtig nou 'n haai is wat hy sien en hy is besiekelik, hy's 100% van sy saak, wat hy dan doen is hy aktiveer die siren van na bo af en die mense wie dan hulle moet uit die water uit, want as 'n haai wat kom of gaan ja. Ons werk met 4 soorte vlagte. Dit is different colors, soos dit swart, groen, rooi en wit. Die swarte meen dat ons is op diens, maar ons kan nie lekker sien nie. Die groene meen dat ons is op diens en ons kan 100% sien. Die rooie vlieg ons 'n uur na hy gebied. En dan kry jy obviously die wit vlag met die swart haai op. Daai is no-go. Daai meen as hy vlag vlieg, dit meen dat hy is letterlik in die water soos ons praat en niemand mag ingaan nie. Ons het 'n spesiale net wat gedesign is by ons en die net is basically 'n barrier om mense safe te hou aan die binnekant en die haie uit te hou.
Maar dit is ook veilig vir die haie.
Ja, dit is ook veilig vir die haie.
The nets here in Fishhook,
Yes.
are they shark friendly?
Yes, they are different. So I was talking about the mesh size. A kykNET mesh is 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. These one are a lot smaller, about that big.
How
so
does it work?
it works because being a much smaller mesh, it doesn't really trap the animals. It's there to prevent them from crossing it. Shark spotter, the exclusion net that they put here, drone. There are so many alternatives these days that don't imply killing marine life.
The one that you designed, for instance.
Yes.
So when is that going to be used as the alternative?
It took only 12 years to develop it and test it, and it started being commercially available 2 years ago. So last year we landed our first commercial installation overseas, and our clients are very happy, and I'm very chuffed with it.
And the sharks are very happy.
And the sharks are very happy.
How does it work?
So we build a barrier that is a barrier from the shark point of view, not from the human point of view. So Mike Ratzen was one of the inventors. And Mike has been diving out of the cage for many years with the shark. And as for a lot of other spear fishermen in South Africa, he knows that white shark don't often go into the thick forest of kelp. That if we build a barrier that resembles a thick forest of kelp, the shark will recognize it as a barrier and they won't cross it. And they're flexible, so when you have a wave, they also dance in the water and they don't trap the energy, which makes them more robust. And on top of it, we start using magnets that we put in the outside row of these pipes, in 1 per meter, one big magnet per meter. And that creates a magnetic barrier that overwhelms one of the shark senses. If they come closer than 2 meters, they cannot cross it.
Ons sal nie sê hy gaan 100% wees om haie uit te hou nie, alhoewel in ons eksperimente was hy 100% effektief. En ons werk al vir 12 jaar op dit. So ons het nog nooit 'n geval gehad waar 'n haai deurkom as ons hom toets nie. En goed, ek dink ons produk sal 10 bietjie duurder wees, maar ons gaan baie meer effektief wees. Want ek bedoel, die mense besef nie eers 'n haai net is nie 'n net nie. Dis 'n klein stukkie van 10 meter lank met groot gate tussenin en die helfte van die haie wat hulle vang word gevang op pad uit en nie op pad in nie. So wat is die doel dan om hierdie haainette te hê as dit ook nie daar heeltemal veiligheid gee nie?
Die KwaZulu-Natal Haairaad beweer egter dat daar nie tans 'n kommersiële produk beskikbaar is wat hulle haainette en hoeke kan vervang nie en wat soos hulle eie instrumente 100% effektief sal wees nie. Hulle is wel besig om 'n toestel wat in kalm see-toestande gebruik kan word te ontwikkel. Hulle elektriese kabel, die Shark Repellent Cable, sal gebruik maak van elektriese golwe om 'n hindernis te skep wat haie afskrik. Selfs vir die wetenskaplikes is alles nie so maklik of ooglopend nie. En hopelik herinner ons jou aan wat jy het in hierdie pragtige, ingewikkelde land.